Today we will be going over another pluralistic article called Don't Let Your Meatloaf Something. I think this website is not doing very well, which is why it takes so long to load. There we go. This is from October 4th, 2023. For 40 years, Big Meat has openly colluded to rig prices. Noted social... Wait. Is this the same article? No, it's a different article. But it's still a good quote. Noted socialist agitator Adam Smith once wrote, "People of the same trade seldom meet together, even for merriment and diversion. But the conversation ends in a conspiracy against the public, or in some contrivance to raise prices." Smith was articulating a basic truth. When an industry becomes concentrated, it grows cozy. Cultural differences between dominant firms are homogenized as top executives move from company to company, cross-pollinating attitudes and approaches. This is true. Have you heard of this guy from EA? Wait. Google.com. No, Google.com. The EA CEO, whatever. Andrew Wilson. Who was that guy who moved from like EA to Unreal or EA CFO moves to another company? Was it? He went to like something. What's his name? No. What was it? Unreal Engine? What's the other engine? There's Unreal. I forgot. Basically, this guy moved from a... Oh, there we go. That's the guy. Unity Engine. CEO at EA becomes Unity CEO. How does that even happen? These two industries have like... I mean, they're related, but like... Unity is very different from EA. So like... When CEOs move from company to company, it's not because they understand the company, is what I was trying to say there. Ambitious, firm-hopping, workaholic top brass makes all their friends at the office, all their friends at the office, and so their former colleagues from one or two jobs back remain in their social circles. Again, John Riccatello. Once an industry consists of half a dozen firms, the people running those companies constitute an incestuous financial polycule. They are executors of one another's estates, best men and maids of honor at one another's weddings, godparents to each other's kids. They play on the same softball teams and take family vacations together. Have you heard of the fact that, like... Wait, this is another interesting thing. Britain politicians, same high school. Who studied at Oxford. It's this one like private high school that every single one of them comes from. 5730 were at this. No, I meant like high school, not university. School. Look, they all go to the same school pretty much. Eton College. Oh my god, so many Eton colleges. Same class, maybe. Graduating class? Maybe this one has it, I don't know. There's this one image which is like all of them in the same image in the same school. I don't know. But look at how many of them come from this Eton College thing. It's a public school. Well, that kind of defeats my point. What was that one school, bro? Okay, I can't find it. What? What are you talking about? Okay, I don't know. It would be heartwarming if it wasn't for the cost to the rest of us. Remember Smith's maxim. It ends in public contrivance to raise prices. Class solidarity among corporate executives forms a united front to screw us in every conceivable way, from corrupting our politicians to maiming and cheating workers to gouging buyers. That's the basis of American antitrust law. When Robert Sherman was stumping for passage of the Sherman Act, America's first major antitrust law, he thundered, "If we will not endure a king as a political power, we should not endure a king over the production, transportation, and sale of the necessaries of life. If we would not submit to an emperor, we should not submit to an autocrat of trade with power to prevent competition and to fix the price of any commodity." Robert Sherman. Interesting. Or rather, that was the basis of American antitrust law until the Reagan era, when the fringe theories of the Nixonite criminal Robert Bork were elevated to a new orthodoxy. Under Bork's conception of antitrust, who's Robert Bork? Is that a real person or is he making fun of someone? Robert Bork. It's a real person. It's some guy who was a professor, state attorney general. Interesting. If a company puts. Wait. Under Bork's conception of antitrust, monopolies were the evidence of excellence. Yikes. If a company puts all of its competitors out of business, that must mean it's efficient. Well, that's not true. In Bork's fantasy world, the only way a company could attain dominance is by being so beloved by its customers that every competitor withers away. Governments that bust monopolies aren't protecting the public from autocrats of trade. They're overthrowing the winners of an election where you vote with your wallet to pick the best company. They're overthrowing the winners of. Okay. But Bork and his co-fantasists, interesting word, couldn't quite manage all that with a straight face. They grudgingly admitted that a certain kind of bad monopolist could hypothetically exist, one that used its market power to raise prices or lower quality. Only when those offenses against our consumer welfare occurred should the state step in to protect the people. This may sound good in theory, but in practice it was a dead letter. The consumer welfare test isn't as simple as if prices go up after a merger, punish the company. Instead, the government had to prove that the price raises came from market power and not from an increase in the energy or labor costs or some other exogenous factor like Mercury being in retrograde. What? What are you talking? What is this article? And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that the mathematical models prescribed to distinguish greed from unavoidable circumstance and inevitably prove that the monopolist wasn't at fault. Surely it's just a coincidence that the priesthood that understood how to make and interpret these models were Chicago school economists who sold model making as a service to companies that wanted to raise prices. Wow. What are we talking about here? Wow. 2022. Apple and Amazon colluded to raise prices, is what was alleged. Was it found, were they found guilty or? Okay. Featuring this. What was the result of this? Court denies their motion to dismiss. Okay, and then? Wait, can I get something here? Because I think so. Case is active. Wow. Interesting. Let's see what happens. Pre-monopoly economists insist that this isn't true, and that their theory still has room to prosecute bad monopolies and cartels when they occur. More, they say, when they occur more. They say this is already happening. In particular, they insist that greedflation can't be real because it would require the kind of conspiracy that Smith warned of, and their sickly antitrust enforcement is sufficient to prevent. This sustains credulity. After all, the CEOs of giant companies in concentrated industries openly boast to their shareholders about how they've used COVID and the Ukraine invasion shocks to hike prices to increase their profit margins, not just cover their additional costs. When excuseflation is new, open, naked price fixing by industry cartels is not. While excuseflation is new, open, naked price fixing by industry cartels is not. Take the meat packing industry, dominated by a tiny handful of giant corporations whose executives literally ran a betting pool on how their workers would get COVID each week while working in their cramped, unventilated factories. Oh, that's not good. These companies have seen their profit margins soar, up 300% over the lockdown, while their payments to ranchers and growers cratered. All this might leave one wondering whether there isn't something a little, conspiracy against the public key going on in big meat. Let me tell you about AgriStats. AgriStats has been around since 1985. Every large meat packer pays to be a member of AgriStats, and they each submit weekly detailed statistics about every aspect of their business, all their costs, their margins, broken down by category. AgriStats compiles this into a phone book thick books that each member gets every week, telling them everything about how all of their competitors are running their businesses. The companies whose data appears in this book are anonymized, but it's trivial to re-identify each supplier. Tyson execs hold regular naming process meetings where they go through new books and de-anonymize the data. A Butterball exec confirmed that he can pick the companies for rankings with 100% certainty. As David Dayen writes in The American Prospect, these books are incredibly detailed. Bird weights, frozen inventory, and heads killed per operating hour. Within the cozy meat cartels, AgriStats acts as a clearinghouse that allows every business in the industry to act in concert, running the entire meatpacking sector as a single company. As interesting as the list of AgriStats members is, the groups that don't get into AgriStats books is just as important: farmers, workers, or retailers. AgriStats also offers consulting services to its members. As an exec at pork processor Smithfield put it, AgriStats advice boils down to 4 words: just raise your price. AgriStats ranks its members based on how high their prices are. They literally publish a league table with the highest prices at the top. Meat packers pay bonuses to their execs based on how high the company's rank is on that table. AgriStats meets with its members throughout the year to discuss price opportunities and to advise them to exercise restraint by restricting supply to keep prices up. When one AgriStats member is considered leaving the cartel, AgriStats wooed them back, telling them how to make an additional $100,000 by raising bacon prices. The reason Dane is writing about AgriStats is that the DOJ Antitrust Division has brought an antitrust lawsuit against them. This is part of a wave of antitrust lawsuits brought by Biden's DOJ and FTC, who, along with his NLRB, are shaping up to be the most pugnacious public interest force against corporate power since the Reagan administration. All this enforcement isn't just a coincidence. It comes down from an explicit rejection of neoliberalism's core tenets. Inequality reflects merit, monopolies are efficient, and government can't do anything. In Biden's DOJ, FTC, and NLRB, they are partying like it's 1979. Wow. What's amazing about the agri-stats conspiracy to raise prices is that it's been going on since the Reagan administration. It's about it's a smoking gun proof that consumer welfare never cared about price fixing and robbing the public. Can a gun still smoke after 40 years? There was never there was never a time when consumer welfare antitrust cared about consumer welfare. It was always and forever a front for a conspiracy against the public, a contrivance to raise prices. Big meat has been robbing America for 2 generations. Some of those stolen funds were used to corrupt our political process. The meat sector gets $50 billion in public subsidies and still gouges us on prices and rips off its suppliers. Which means which means that it's possible that we're simultaneously being ripped off with meat prices and that meat prices are artificially low. Try and wrap your head around that one. The do nothing pro monopoly neoliberal antitrust is a virus that spread around the world. The EU's antitrust were reshaped to mirror American laws after the war through the Marshall Plan, but since the late 1970s, European lawmakers and enforcers have ignored their own laws and encouraged monopolies as efficient. This made in Europe oligopoly, combined with the energy and grain shocks from the Russian invasion of Ukraine, created the perfect storm for European greedflation. As food prices spiked across the EU, Austrian hacktivist Mario Zechner set out to investigate Austrian grocers' pricing. Using the grocer's own APIs, he was able to compile and analyze a dataset of prices at Austrian grocers. That's pretty cool. When Zechner open sourced his project, collaborators showed up to expand the project to across other EU countries, and an anonymous party donated a huge database of prices stretching back to 2017. The data reveals clear collusion among the grocers, who raise prices in near lockstep and use gimmicks like cyclic price drops to hide their collusion. Wow. Not every grocer has an API, and even the ones that do have APIs could easily block Zechner and Co. from accessing their data. When that happens, they could and should turn to scraping to continue their project. They should also scrape grocers elsewhere, including in Canada, where grocers rig the prices of bread. Big meat. Because big meat's conspiracy against the public isn't unique to meat, it's all in our food, it's all in our goods, it's all in our services. The fact that the meat industry was able to rob American buyers, ranchers, and farmers for 2 generations under a 200-inch tall neon sign that blinked agri-stats, agri-stats, agri-stats night and day is frankly astonishing. But there is never just one ant. If the meatheads running Big Meat were able to do this in broad daylight since the NES years, imagine what all the other industries were able to get up to in the shadows. Yeah,